being judged, being, having sort of being in the spotlight, about who you are as a human being, that is awkward. And then it was, 4 years later. 3 or 4 years later.
Wow.
It's like he'd always been there. It's like he fit in the crook of my arm. He looked me in the eyes, and he was wise.
Everyone knows her as America's sweetheart, the funny, down-to-earth star that everybody seems to love. For over 30 years, Sandra Bullock has built a reputation as one of the most relatable and genuinely kind figures in the cutthroat world of Hollywood. She's the celebrity you feel like you could grab a coffee with. Her smile feels real, her laugh is infectious, and her on-screen charm seems less like acting and more like who she really is. She's the queen of the rom-com, a dramatic powerhouse with an Oscar on her shelf, and an action hero who's gone toe-to-toe with the biggest names in the business. On the surface, her career is just a highlight reel of success, friendship, and non-stop adoration. But what happens when the cameras stop rolling? Behind the scenes, some of Hollywood's biggest names have allegedly pushed Sandra Bullock to her absolute limit. From awkward encounters to full-blown feuds, not every co-star has ended up a friend. The perfect image of Hollywood harmony often hides a much messier reality. It's a world of intense pressure, clashing egos, and grueling work. Schedules that could test the patience of a saint. Now, hate is a strong word, and maybe too strong for the complicated world of professional relationships. But the stories of friction, avoidance, and outright conflict, they're very real, and they often come from the stars themselves. Today, we're diving into the 6 actors who reportedly clashed with the star. We'll dig into the awkward first meetings, the on-set battles that got a little too real, and the personality clashes that created tension you'd never see on the big screen. You might just be surprised by who made this list. We're counting. Down from the curious clashes to the outright conflicts that prove even America's sweetheart has a breaking point. Let's get into it. Coming in at number 6 is a story that blurs the line between committed acting and actual physical pain. We're going back to the year 2000, on the set of one of Sandra Bullock's most iconic films, Miss Congeniality. In the movie, Bullock plays Gracie Hart, a scrappy FBI agent forced to go undercover at a beauty pageant. Her partner, Eric Matthews, played by the suave Benjamin Bratt, is her polar opposite, a polished, by-the-book agent who doubts she can pull it off. Their on-screen chemistry is a classic case of opposites attract, mixing bickering with undeniable sparks. But behind the camera, their physical scenes apparently got intense enough to leave a few bruises. The main issue was the physicality of their roles. Gracie Hart is no damsel in distress. She's a trained agent, which meant Bullock had to perform several fight and self-defense scenes. One of the film's best moments is when Gracie demonstrates self-defense on Eric in a gym, easily flipping him onto a mat. It's played for laughs, but according to behind-the-scenes stories, both actors were so committed to realism that things got genuinely painful. Sources have claimed that Sandra Bullock and Benjamin Bratt did all their own fighting. Stunts in the movie. While stunt doubles were there, their main job was reportedly to make sure the actors used proper form, not to take the hits for them. That dedication is impressive, but it meant that when Gracie Hart had to get tough with Eric Matthews, Sandra Bullock had to get tough with Benjamin Bratt, and apparently, she didn't hold back. One story details an incident where Bullock had to kick Bratt in the calves, and the kick was so real that it reportedly caused a legitimate injury. So, was this a sign of some hidden animosity? All signs point to no. Bratt himself has always talked about the experience in a fun, light-hearted way. The dynamic on set was professional, and the fights were choreographed. But the incident shows a different kind of on-set tension, the kind that happens when a role pushes actors into physically uncomfortable situations. It's one thing to pretend to fight. It's another to do it over and over, knowing that one wrong move could lead to real pain. Imagine it. Take after take, Bullock has to be aggressive. Bratt has to take it. The line between performance and reality starts to blur. Add in the exhaustion of a long shoot day, and a kick lands a little too hard. An apology is made, but the physical memory is still there. This isn't hate in the way we usually think of it. It's a form of professional friction that comes with the job itself. For Bullock, who was also a producer on the film, the pressure to deliver a convincing performance was huge. For Bratt, the role required him to be both a romantic lead and, at times, a literal punching bag. Their off-camera relationship has always been described as friendly. They had a chemistry that made Miss Congeniality a massive hit. There were never any reports of arguments or personal drama, but the physical nature of their on-screen dynamic created a unique challenge, proving that even a funny fight scene can be a source of genuine, if accidental, conflict. This lands Benjamin Bratt on our list as a co-star who saw the tougher side of working with a fully committed Sandra Bullock. At number 5, we have a feud that's less about on-set drama and more about a playground rivalry that went straight to the principal's office. This story involves Sandra Bullock and her co-star from the 2022 comedy The Lost City, Channing Tatum. But the conflict didn't start with them. It started with their daughters. Before they ever worked together, Bullock and Tatum were just two parents whose daughters, Layla Bullock and Everly Tatum, went to the same preschool. And as both actors have hilariously shared in interviews, their daughters really did not get along. In fact, their beef was so serious that it led to frequent calls home from the school. Sandra Bullock told People magazine, "Channing and I were always getting called by the principal of our school because our daughters were at each other's throats." She explained that the girls were in a constant battle for dominance. "It's not the case anymore," she recalled. But like one of them was trying to outdo the other one and take the other one down. It was hilarious. Tatum confirmed the story, telling Vanity Fair that their daughters got into a couple scraps at school because they're both very, very, very strong-willed little girls. This put Bullock and Tatum in a super awkward spot. As parents, they were mortified. Bullock joked that whenever the school called, their first thought was a prayer. "So, we were always praying it was the other one's daughter when we were called into the office." Channing Tatum laughed about how absurd it all was, imagining himself thinking, of all the people to fight with their daughter. The preschool rivalry got so consistent that the school had to create a special challenge to make peace. The principal gave the two girls a task to see which one could be the nicest to the other. This led to the funny image of two feuding kids, grudgingly offering each other tiny cups of water in a forced act of kindness. So where does the hate fit in? It wasn't between Bullock and Tatum themselves. By all accounts, their interactions were a mix of shared parental embarrassment and humor. But the situation created a real, if indirect, friction. Being constantly called to deal with your kid's behavior is stressful for any parent. When the other parent is also a world-famous movie star, it just adds another layer of weirdness. It was a feud by proxy, where their daughter's beef became a recurring source of stress in their own lives. Thankfully, the story has a happy ending. When they finally started filming The Lost City, their families quarantined together and the girls were forced to hang out. The result? It was a love fest, Bullock explained. Just sleepovers, everyone in my bed. The rivalry dissolved and they became close friends. Today, Bullock and Tatum call themselves full-on besties. But their friendship started in the last place you'd expect, a principal's office, as two embarrassed parents on opposite sides of a preschool power struggle. This unique backstory earns Channing Tatum a spot on this list. Our number 4 spot takes us to the set of another beloved Sandra Bullock rom-com, 2009's The Proposal. Her co-star was Ryan Reynolds, an actor known for his sharp wit and charm. On screen, their chemistry was electric, but one scene in particular, maybe the most memorable one in the whole film, was reportedly a source of major awkwardness. We're talking, of course, about the nude scene. The scene has their characters, Margaret and Andrew, accidentally running into each other while completely naked. It's a moment of pure slapstick comedy. To get that shot, both Bullock and Reynolds had to be fully nude on set for a long time. And while the final scene is hilarious, filming it was anything but glamorous. Bullock has been very open that she only agreed to do it because it was funny. "You will not see me trying to attempt being sexy naked, in real life or on screen. There's just no point in it," she stated. She felt comfortable doing it with Reynolds because they'd been friends for years, which she thought provided a sense of safety. Still, friendship doesn't magically erase the awkwardness of being naked in a room full of people. The real tension came from the mishaps. Bullock recounted a now infamous story on the About Last Night podcast. After a take where she and Reynolds collided and fell, they had to stay still on the floor. Suddenly, the director, Ann Fletcher, yelled out, "Ryan, we can see your ball sack!" Bullock described her immediate reaction. "I'm like, oh God, because you want to look down, but I'm like, don't look down, don't look down." She praised Reynolds for being absolutely unflappable and professional, but the moment was incredibly awkward for everyone. Now that's the part of the story we know is true. But over the years, unsubstantiated rumors have painted a picture of a bigger conflict. Gossip sites have whispered that Reynolds was a control freak on set, trying to manage every little detail of their scenes. These rumors suggest that Bullock, an established superstar and a producer on the film, felt sidelined. It's important to say that these are just rumors, and neither actor has ever confirmed them. In fact, Bullock has consistently praised Reynolds' professionalism. Still, the existence of these rumors points to how even small creative differences can get magnified on a movie set. What's certain is that the nude scene, while a comedic win, was a hotbed of professional awkwardness. The ball sack incident, though funny now, shows the clinical and often mortifying reality of filming intimate moments. While there's no real evidence of hate, the combination of physical vulnerability, professional pressure, and persistent rumors of a clash makes the dynamic between Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds on the set of The Proposal one of the most interesting in her career. Coming in at number 3 is a relationship that might be the most surprising one on this list. It involves George Clooney, one of Hollywood's most beloved stars and a longtime friend of Sandra Bullock. And yet, their work on the 2013 sci-fi masterpiece, Gravity, was reportedly filled with a strange kind of tension, one born not of dislike, but of isolation and clashing work styles. Gravity was not a normal movie set. Director Alfonso Cuarón used revolutionary technology to simulate being weightless in space. For Sandra Bullock, who is on screen for almost the entire movie, this meant spending 10-hour days alone inside a 9-by-9-foot cube of LED panels called the light box. She was strapped into rigs, moved by robotic arms, and often had to act to a blank screen with Cuarón's voice in her ear. Bullock herself has described the experience as frustrating, painful, and isolating. She admitted that the process put her in a dark headspace and that there was a running joke on set that she wanted to kill the director and producer regularly. It was, by her own account, an incredibly lonely ordeal that was brutal but necessary. For her performance, into this solitary, high-stress world entered George Clooney. Clooney, who played veteran astronaut Matt Kowalski, is famous for being a charismatic, fun-loving presence on set, a notorious prankster who keeps things light. At first, his arrival was a breath of fresh air. Bullock said that when he showed up, it was like the sunshine entered the room. But his time on the film was short. He shot his scenes in about 3 weeks and then left, leaving Bullock to face the rest of the grueling shoot by herself. And this is where the quiet friction reportedly started. Clooney's experience on Gravity was totally different from Bullock's. He was in and out. His role, while important, didn't require the same long, isolated endurance. While Bullock was trapped in her box, grappling with the weight of carrying the film, Clooney was being his charming self, cracking jokes and then moving on. For Bullock, who was in the trenches day after day, that sharp contrast could have been grating. His light-hearted vibe, normally a good thing, might have felt completely disconnected from the bleak reality of her daily work. Some reports have even suggested Clooney's love of pranks was a source of tension. While there's no specific story of a prank on the Gravity set, his reputation is well known. For an actress like Bullock, who needed to stay in a state of intense focus and emotional vulnerability, the threat of a practical joke could have been an unwelcome distraction. It represents a fundamental clash in work styles. Bullock's methodical, internal process versus Clooney's freewheeling social approach. There was no shouting match, no big feud. They are still friends, but tension can show up in quieter ways. It can be the resentment that builds from unequal burdens. It can be the irritation of watching a colleague breeze through a project that is costing you physically and emotionally. The filming of Gravity was a lonely journey for Sandra Bullock, and George Clooney was a brief visitor from another world, a world of ease and laughter that was miles away from the dark, lonely box where she created her Oscar-nominated performance. At number 2, we have a name that will probably shock anyone familiar with Sandra Bullock's career, Keanu Reeves. The pairing of Bullock and Reeves in the 1994 classic Speed is the stuff of Hollywood legend. Their on-screen chemistry was so electric it launched both of them into superstardom. So how could Keanu Reeves, a man known as one of the kindest actors in the business, possibly be on a list of people Sandra Bullock hated? The answer is that this isn't a story of animosity at all. It's about a different and maybe more relatable kind of hate, the quiet, nagging regret of a missed opportunity. This is the story of a mutual crush that went unspoken for over 20 years, a what-if that has fascinated fans and the actors themselves. The truth finally came out on a talk show years later. In 2018, on The Ellen DeGeneres Show, Sandra Bullock confessed what many had suspected. Looking back at filming Speed, she admitted she had a massive crush on Keanu Reeves. "I think about how sweet Keanu Reeves was and how handsome he was," she said. "It was hard for me to be serious. Like, he would look at me and I'd be like..." She trailed off, giggling. When Ellen asked if they ever dated, Bullock said no, joking, "There was something about me that I guess he didn't like." The story could have ended there. But a few months later, Keanu Reeves was on the same show. Ellen played the clip of Bullock's confession for him. As he watched, his face broke into a smile. He had no idea she felt that way. And then, he dropped the bombshell. "She obviously didn't know I had a crush on her either," he admitted. For 25 years, the two stars of one of the most romantic action films ever had been secretly pining for each other, and neither one said a word. Reeves explained why he never made a move. "We were working," Bullock later agreed, suggesting that they are probably still friends today because they never dated. But the revelation was out there, a perfect tragicomedy of missed signals. This is where our creative take on hate comes in. It's that feeling you get when you look back and think, "I hate that I didn't say something." It's the frustration of knowing one word could have changed everything. Both Bullock and Reeves have expressed this sense of wonder. Their story is one of deep respect and affection, but it's also tinged with the sadness of what might have been. They had the chemistry, the affection, and the opportunity, but professionalism and shyness stood in the way. This entry isn't about a feud, it's about the very human feeling of regret. The hate here isn't aimed at each other, but at the circumstances and at their own past shyness. It's a powerful story that reveals a hidden, emotionally charged dynamic. In a town full of fake relationships, the story of Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves is one of genuine, unspoken affection, which makes the missed connection all the more powerful. And now, we've arrived at the #1 spot. This is the story that comes closest to a genuine real-life conflict, a multi-year Cold War sparked by one incredibly awkward first impression. The actor who pushed Sandra Bullock to the point of completely avoiding him for 3 years is none other than the king of British romantic comedy himself, Hugh Grant. Their eventual pairing in the 2002 film 2 Weeks' Notice seemed like a rom-com match made in heaven. Bullock, America's sweetheart, and Grant, the charmingly cynical Brit, were two of the biggest names in the genre. But behind the scenes, their relationship had a history, and it was far from charming. The incident happened years before they ever worked together. As Grant himself has told it, the two stars were set up for a relationship meeting to see if they might want to work together. It was supposed to be a friendly, casual get-together, but Hugh Grant, in his famously unfiltered style, managed to blow up the meeting spectacularly. I told Sandy a very disgusting story, which I think revolted her. She left the room, and I didn't hear from her for 3 years after that, Grant explained in an interview. He has never revealed the details of the disgusting story, and maybe that's for the best. Whatever he said, it was so off-putting that it caused Sandra Bullock to not only walk out of the meeting, but to actively cut off all contact with him for 3 years. This wasn't a small mistake. It was a total social disaster. For an actress known for her professional and down-to-earth personality, to physically leave a meeting and then blacklist a fellow A-list star says a lot about how disgusted she must have felt. It started a silent feud between two of Hollywood's biggest stars. While Grant was starring in hits like Notting Hill and Bridget Jones's Diary, Bullock was reportedly telling her agents he was one co-star she never wanted to work with. It's a classic clash of personalities. Bullock's public image is one of warmth and sincerity. Grant, on the other hand, is famously grumpy, cynical, and has a reputation for being brutally blunt. Bullock herself later commented on this, admitting that Grant's bluntness can be tough to handle. Their two worlds, her American earnestness and his British cynicism, collided in the worst way possible. So what changed? The answer is simple: a good script. The screenplay for 2 Weeks' Notice was too good for either of them to pass up. Reluctantly, it seems, the hatchet was buried. When they finally got on set together, the tension had surprisingly disappeared. In fact, it had turned into the very thing